During the past few months, we've revisited some cool British singles released during the second half of 1967. Now, the year's coming to an end, and it's time to take a look at some cool British singles released in December of that year. December 1967 saw the release of Tin Soldier, one of the greatest singles by the Small Faces. The song featured P.P. Arnold on backing vocals. The Small Faces returned the favor by backing P.P. Arnold on her next single, released a month later in January 1968. Tin Soldier got excellent reviews in the press. New Musical Express journalist Keith Holtham spoke to Steve Marriott and asked him about the band's new single. Marriott said, "We wanted to make a record that was really us. Tin Soldier is the real us. And Itchy-Coo Park was really a nice kind of send-up. Some of the kids were saying that we were not so wild as we used to be. So we came up with Tin Soldier." The single peaked at number 9 in the UK singles chart. Another excellent single released that month was Garden of My Mind by the Mickey Finn. Even though the single was a commercial failure when it was originally released, this is yet another single from 1967 that has become a cult classic through its appearance on several Psych compilations over the years. Guitarist Mickey Waller adopted the name Mickey Finn in 1963 and formed the band Mickey Finn and the Blue Men. The group released their first single in January 1964. In 1965, the band changed its name to the Mickey Finn and released 4 more singles. Their last single, Garden of My Mind, was perhaps their best. The song was very influenced by Hendrix and featured one of the coolest bass lines of 1967. Sadly, the single went pretty much unnoticed, and it only managed to get this small review published in Record Mirror.
A bit of a rave up in blues bashing. This group has flair and spirit. Good.
Mickey Finn reverted to his original name in the early 70s when percussionist Mickey Finn became famous as a member of T-Rex. The guitarist played with the Heavy Metal Kids from 1972 to 1974. He then moved to France, where he became a sought-after session musician. Traffic released their third single in December 1967. The song was the title track of the film Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush, starring Judy Geeson and directed by Clive Dunner. The film's soundtrack featured songs by both Traffic and the Spencer Davis Group. Disc Magazine asked Stevie Winwood about the song. Winwood said, "We wrote that stuff over 6 months ago, before the Traffic was even formed. We were in the cottage working on the score. We wrote the single, the first thing we'd ever done, and we were going to release it as our first disc. But we had to wait for the film." The song reached number 8 in the UK singles chart. Another single that has become a cult favourite over the years is A Day in My Mind's Mind by the Human Instinct. Journalist Penny Valentine wrote,
"Effective Morse code signals start Mike Hurst's first entry into a more way out production than usual, with A Day in My Mind's Mind by the Human Instinct. The actual tune is like the Rolling Stones' 19th Nervous Breakdown with Fly Away Woodwind."
Record Mirror wrote,
The Human Instinct are 4 young New Zealanders who've already made it at home, but want to spread their success to British fans. In New Zealand, they enjoyed 3 number 1 hits. And although they've only been in London since last September, they've built up a steady following that could be increased by their own composition, A Day in My Mind's Mind on the Derham label.
A 17-year-old Peter Frampton got his first taste of success in August 1967, when the song from the Underworld became a top 10 hit in the UK. Paradise Lost, like the previous single, was another excellent song written by Howard Blakely, who also wrote plenty of hits for bands like the Tremeloes or Dave D. The song started with a piece from The Stripper by David Rose. Derek Johnson from the New Musical Express wrote,
The song is the tale of a fellow who's drowning his sorrows in drink in a sleazy strip joint while he reflects on the loss of his youthful innocence. It's extremely well done, evocative, and highly commercial.
The song reached number 8 in the UK singles chart.
I don't want you. You blast me up. I don't need you.
Any music style or fad that gets massively popular will always inevitably get its fair share of parody songs. Bedazzled by Peter Cook and Dudley Moore proves that sometimes parody songs can be just as good as the music genre they're mocking. The song appeared on a scene from the film Bedazzled, directed by Stanley Donen. The title track was performed within the movie by the fictional psychedelic band Dimble Wedge and the Vegetation, featuring Peter Cook's character as the nihilist vocalist of the group.
You fill me with inertia.
The song has become a minor classic over the years, and it's been covered by several artists, including Nick Cave and Tony Hatch. Paper Blitz Tissue were formed in London in 1966. The band was a regular on the psychedelic underground scene, where they played such venues as the Middle Earth and the Electric Garden. In December 1967, they released Boy Meets Girl, their first and only single. That same month, the group appeared on Death of a Private, a play that was part of the BBC One's programme The Wednesday Play. Sadly, no copies of the film are known to exist. Record Mirror wrote,
You may have seen the group perform this Ron Grainer song in BBC One's Wednesday Play this week. A biting, reverberating sound with vocal on deep echo. A competent beat group disc.
The single failed to chart and the band broke up in 1968. Studio 6 were formed in Glasgow and released 4 singles for Polydor during their brief existence. Their last single, Strawberry Window, was the one which saw the band fully embracing psychedelia. All their singles are now highly collectible. The New Musical Express wrote,
Try and catch this one. It will be worth the effort. A startling psychedelic opening leads into a big bash thumper with a spirited styling from the group. And there are all sorts of unexpected developments as it progresses. Very different.
The single failed to chart. One of the biggest British hits of 1968 was released in December 1967. The Love Affair were a bunch of kids from ages 15 to 17 who loved soul. In December 1967, they released a cover of this soul number by Robert Knight. Their cover, which featured an arrangement that was quite different from the original, ended up eclipsing the original version. Against all odds, the song achieved #1 status in January 1968. And it's among the greatest soul songs ever released by a British band. The Love Affair never made it in the States, but they had several hits in the UK in 1968 and early 1969.
I was warned about you, baby, but my feelings were a little bit too strong.
Ainsley Dunbar Retaliation are one of the most underrated bands to come out of the so-called British blues boom of the late 60s, which also included bands such as Fleetwood Mac or Savoy Brown among many others. This renewed interest in the blues eventually paved the way for the blues-based hard rock bands of the late 60s and early 70s. Therefore, it's not surprising that a couple of years later, Black Sabbath covered this song on their debut album. Record Mirror wrote,
Big powering slice of blues on the Blue Horizon division. Nice feel to this one.
Here's yet another example of a single that has become a bit of a cult classic among fans of British psychedelia. Pregnant Insomnia, no doubt one of the worst band names in the history of popular music, were a short-lived psychedelic group that was formed in Orpington in early 1967. This was the only single they ever released. And even though it was a flop, it actually got some pretty positive reviews in the press. Chris Welch reviewed the single for The Melody Maker. Welch wrote,
Here is a sound one can begin to feel excited about despite the depression eating into my soul due to Christmas, Southern Region timetables, and discovering I have only £2 in my post office account.
The single failed to chart. Hope you enjoyed this trip back to December 1967. Next month, we'll go back to January. And during the next few months, we'll revisit some cool British singles released during the first half of 1967. See you next time. Merry Christmas.